Our correspondent Maria Bird joins us now from Washington for an update. Maria, I know that those protesters aimed at making this as peaceful as possible. So why the sudden turn in events with more frequent clashes between protesters and the police?
Well, unfortunately, the president, when he came out and spoke about the law and order and the issues surrounding what this military enforcement will mean for those protesters, you have obviously chief of police, you have heads of the military that are actually providing guidance to these police who are standing in National Guard, who are standing there in front of the protesters. And so obviously, yes, I'm sure there is a lot of very heated tension throughout the conversations between the police and the protesters. But the reality is this is really stemming back to the tear gas that was dispersed and many of those things that are occurring with our protesters at the hands of the police and the direction that they are receiving from our federal government.
And speaking of the federal government, President Trump has talked about deploying the military to quell the protests. This could be counterproductive in the end. Even his defense secretary does not support the use of deploying the National Guard to quell the protests. How is this issue playing out before the American people?
This is really something the American people cannot believe. We can't remember, going back to 9/11 is the last time we saw Army tankers going down Pennsylvania Avenue, the street that leads you to the White House. When you see Army tankers and those in military fatigue there to stop the protesters, to guard what they're calling the city that is under distress at this point, that is a signal that this is not just about peaceful protesting and about change, but this is about the military and about, as the president has said, this is about law and order. And so the tension is going to only continue to rise when you see that type of imagery going down the streets of everyday residential communities. And obviously, most importantly, the area in the nation's capital that is most visited by many of our people across the world.
And across the world, those protests also, you have solidarity protests going on across the world where leaders also chiming in, speaking out against racism and police brutality in the United States. Just yesterday, the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said it's time to listen. Now we have comments coming from the Iranian Supreme Leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Does the president worry about how the rest of the world is perceiving America right now?
Unfortunately, I think that the worry about the rest of the world's perception of the U.S. is not part of the White House's administration. When you talk about what has been done with the World Health Organization threatening to stop funding, I mean, the many things that have happened over the last few years shows that perception is not the number one concern for the White House. And so at this time, I think that the American people are very glad and happy to see that the rest of the world is banding behind and looking beyond just the fact that one man has been killed, but they're asking for change to the system and the culture of policing in the United States.
Yeah, Maria, this almost looks like America going back 60 years. We're going back to a slave era when, there was a lot of white supremacy going on. And I'm sure that a lot of black folks do feel bad about what's happening and the police brutality. Thanks again for joining us on The World Today.